Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Jason White, and this is Jason's Weird Reads, and today I'm going to be talking about the books I really enjoyed reading over the summer. Now, as it stands right now, we're in October, and I've already beat my Goodreads reading goal of 50 books, and I'm already at 60-something books. I'm 22 books ahead of schedule, and a lot of these books I read during the summer. And so I really enjoyed what I read over the summer. It was really hard to choose my favorites because I could have added most of them. And there were some I wanted to add on here, but I finished them just before summer, and I want to mention those first maybe. But I've seen this video going around. It's not like a super popular video, but I thought I saw a couple people do. I can't remember who now. I wish I could, because that'd be helpful. But there's been a couple of videos saying my favorite summer reads, and I was like, you know what, I had a pretty interesting summer. I think I'll do the same thing. So, honorable mentions here I want to mention is Darkest Hours by Mike Thorne. I finished that just before summer in preparation to talk to him, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed all the short stories in there. And I enjoyed the critical essays on movies in the last part. And I also want to mention Underworld Dreams by Daniel Brahm. He has a really cool, dreamy writing style in that collection. And there's it's not just like horrific stories or strange tales, weird tales. He likes to play with genre within that collection as well. And it was just a lot of fun. Alright, so moving on. These aren't in any, I'm not tiering these. These are just my favorites. I have 6 here that I chose. So first up, I'm going to talk about my first Grady Hendrix books. Actually, I have this book here. Some preparation in creating videos goes a long way. I read We Sold Our Souls, as I mentioned, by Grady Hendrix. Now this this was a treat. I'm glad I read this one as my first Grady Hendrix book, because this book is heavy metal. I've talked about this book a little bit previously. Not to criticize Joe Hill's Heart-Shaped Box, but the music in that book, because it's about a musician as well, but the music in that book is often described as like death metal. And it's nowhere near death metal. They're talking like AC/DC type music, and that's not death metal or death rock even. That's just rock. I guess I'm putting on my snobby hat now, but the bands that are mentioned in this book are all very heavy, so very heavy, and it goes beyond just bands like Metallica or Slayer. There's a lot of bands in here the casual metal music fan might not know. And so I appreciated that, but what I also appreciated was the story of a woman who's in a band, and the band broke up, and the one guy went off and became exceptionally famous, and they learn that he sold everyone in that early conception of his band, he sold their souls in order to make himself huge. And so they want something back. But it's not just that. It's not like a revenge story, because he's the guy who did that to them is willing to kill them in order to keep what he created. He also has lost his creativity, and he's looking to get it back. So there's some really interesting things going on in this book. I kind of butchered any synopsis that this book deserves, but I really enjoyed my time reading this book, and I'm looking forward to reading more Grady Hendrix. I have read the majority of Paperbacks from Hell, but not the entire thing. But so this was my first, and that's also nonfiction, but this is fiction, and it's really good. Moving on. Next up, I have Queen of Teeth by Haley Piper, and I read this in preparation to talking with her at the end of the summer. And this book is a wild ride, man. Let me tell you, I'm definitely not the target market for this book, but it was still a pleasure for me to read. It really reminded me of like a movie that could have been made from 1985 to 1994 somewhere. Small budget, but with good enough graphics department to really make a crazy ride out of this. I'm thinking of like, RoboCop with The Thing, if that makes any sense. If you've read this book, maybe RoboCop and The Thing will make sense to you. But there's also a little bit of, oh, what the hell's the name of that movie? This is going to be a bitch to edit. It also has a little bit of Blade Runner in it. I don't know if everyone would agree with me on that, but that's the way I see it. What really counts as Queen of Teeth is exceptionally fun novel to read, and it's very well written, and I think most people should be able to enjoy this book for just its craziness, and I highly recommend it. Next up, I have My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This one was another treat because I listened to the audio of this, and I really want the physical copy of the book. Stephen Graham Jones made this into an ode to slasher films. The main character, she's sort of writing like a history paper for school, and they're scattered throughout the book. And it's something 101, like horror movies 101 or slasher 101. It begins like every part or chapter, and there's a lot of history in there. And the main character herself, while you're following her throughout the story, she's just a walking encyclopedia of slasher films. It's incredible. And I enjoyed it for that alone. But the story itself is a lot of fun because in the small town in which she lives, some murders have been taking place, and in her head, of course, this is the slasher story that she's been kind of waiting for in a weird sense. And so she goes on the hunt to find the final girl who will, defeat the bad guy, the slasher. And so that's all I'm going to say about that book, but it's a fantastic read. It's going to win a shit ton of awards, you can count on that, and it deserves it. Next up, I read and really enjoyed, actually I listened to this one on my Scribd account. I wasn't expecting to enjoy this book as much as I did, and that was Crato by Owl Going Back. This book is about a creature that has been awakened in a small town, and this creature is pretty violent. This book, it sort of teeters on extreme horror without necessarily being extreme horror, but it's got some pretty gory scenes in it. I really enjoyed the characters and just the whole monster story, creature feature. And again, this one had like an 80s feel to it to me. It was written in like 1995 or thereabouts, I think. And so that could be why. But it was a lot of fun to read, and it came right when I didn't even know I wanted a creature feature, but as soon as I started listening to it when we were going camping, and it was like a 2-hour drive to get there, and I listened to about an hour of it on the way there, and I was like, yes, this is it. This is what I need. Alright, also, in another author I read in order to prepare for an interview was Philip Fracasse's recent collection of short stories, Beneath a Pale Sky. This is another vacation book, and I read the first story of this on the beach, and there's a certain weather element that takes place in the first story there that was really interesting to read on the beach, because you have the wind blowing in your face, and you also have like some of the spray picked up from the water itself. And if you know what I'm talking about, the weather element that takes place in the story, then you know what I'm talking about. There's the wind and the rain, or not the rain, but the sort of mist that comes off with the wind. It just created a really, really fascinating reading experience, and I absolutely loved the entire collection. And I highly recommend anyone who hasn't read any Philip Fracasse to drop what you're doing, just read the guy, because he creates these stories that are very intense. Sometimes his stories will start off slow, but he's grounding you in reality first, and then the crazy hits, and he just grabs you, and he doesn't let go. He's a very fascinating writer, and honestly, I can't recommend him enough, and he's a really great guy to talk to. I'm so glad to have him on my channel, and to, you know, grill him for a little while. And after the interview, we talked for, God, it was like an hour, hour and a half afterwards. It was one of my favorite interview experiences ever, honestly. Not to put any of the other ones down by any means. It was just really interesting. It could be because Philip Fracassi is one of my favorite writers and has been since like around 2017. And for him to be gracious enough to yak with me afterwards. You know, sometimes it's my own fault though, 'cause sometimes I have to go when the interview's done. So I gotta go pick up my wife or I gotta go get my son. This time I was able to lounge around and we just kind of yacked it up. It was really awesome. And last here, I also read this while at the end of my vacation, and I kind of kept putting it off because I was afraid to read it because of the element of loss and grief, especially towards losing your child. And that's kind of it's not triggering necessarily for me because I haven't experienced it. But the thing is I don't want to experience it. And so experiencing it in a vicarious sort of way freaks me out a little bit. But this book actually didn't destroy me like I thought it would, but it came close, and I'm very glad I read it. And of course, I'm talking about Crossroads by Laurel Hightower. This is a very, very well-written book. It focuses on the grief almost exactly like I thought it would, but there's some supernatural strangeness happening at the same time. So you're not just dwelling in grief and misery. And I really enjoyed reading it, which is a weird thing to say because this book is very dark and it's quite depressing. It's basically about a woman who lost her son, and she's going through some terrible things mentally. She finds that she keeps visiting the spot where her son died. He died in a car accident, and she accidentally. I'm not going to get into any of the plot details because I don't want to ruin it. But that's basically all you need to know. There's some supernatural elements too. It is a heartbreaking book, but I believe if you're holding back for the same reasons that I did, just dive into it. I don't think it'll destroy you. Alright, so that is the favorite books that I read. There's probably one that I've missed or two, but I don't think so. I'm always afraid of missing books or people when I'm recommending things. Alright, so thank you for watching. Keep being safe, keep being creative, and I'll catch you guys in the next bookish video.